He destroyed me.
The husband said coldly to his wife,
Sorry, honey, but your cousin is way better.
"Oh, if he only knew that." Hey there, grab yourself a coffee and enjoy the story. Rachel Sullivan smoothed the wrinkles from her navy blue dress as she examined herself in the full-length mirror. At 45, she still maintained the graceful elegance that had first caught Michael's eye 20 years ago. Her chestnut hair, now subtly highlighted to mask the encroaching gray, fell in soft waves just past her shoulders. A few smile lines had formed around her hazel eyes over the years, but they only added character to her warm, open face. "Is the lasagna ready?" Michael's voice echoed from downstairs. "We need to leave in 30 minutes if we want to be on time." Rachel applied a final touch of lipstick and took a deep breath. "Just need to take it out of the oven," she called back. "Everything's under control." The Sullivan household in their suburban neighborhood of Oakwood Heights was always the gathering spot for family celebrations. Today was no exception. Rachel's favorite cousin Emma was celebrating her 35th birthday, and, as usual, Rachel had volunteered to host. She'd spent the entire day preparing Emma's favorite meal, decorating the dining room with fresh flowers, and making sure everything was perfect. Rachel descended the stairs to find Michael checking his watch in the foyer. At 48, her husband still possessed the athletic build and confident posture that had made him one of the most eligible bachelors at their college. His dark hair had begun to silver at the temples, giving him a distinguished look that suited his position as a financial advisor at one of the city's most prestigious firms. "You look handsome," Rachel said, straightening his tie. Michael smiled distractedly, but didn't return the compliment. Lately, she'd noticed a growing distance between them, subtle at first, but increasingly obvious. She attributed it to his recent promotion. The additional responsibilities had meant longer hours and more stress. In the kitchen, Rachel carefully removed the bubbling lasagna from the oven. The aroma of tomato, basil, and melted cheese filled the air, bringing back memories of Sunday dinners at her grandmother's house. Emma had always been there too, more like a sister than a cousin. They had grown up together, shared secrets, and supported each other through life's ups and downs. "Do you think we made enough food?" Rachel asked, gesturing to the spread on the counter. Lasagna, garlic bread, Caesar salad, and Emma's favorite chocolate mousse cake for dessert. Michael glanced at the food and shrugged. "It's fine," he said, his attention focused on his phone. Rachel frowned. "Is everything okay? You've been distracted all week." "Just work stuff," he replied without looking up. "The Donaldson account is giving me headaches." She nodded, used to this explanation. Michael's work had always come first, and she had accepted that as part of their marriage. After all, his dedication had given them a comfortable life. Their beautiful 4-bedroom colonial with the garden she loved, annual vacations to places they'd once only dreamed of visiting, and the security of knowing their retirement was well funded. As Rachel covered the lasagna with foil, she thought about their life together. They hadn't been blessed with children, a source of private sorrow for her, but they had built a good life nonetheless. They had friends, family, their careers. She worked as an interior designer with a small but loyal clientele, and each other. It wasn't perfect, but what marriage was. The doorbell rang at precisely 6 o'clock. "That'll be Emma," Rachel said, feeling a familiar surge of affection. Emma had always been punctual, one of the many traits they shared. Michael set his phone down abruptly. "I'll get it," he offered, moving toward the door with unusual eagerness. Rachel watched as her husband straightened his shirt and ran a hand through his hair before opening the door. A small gesture, but something about it made her pause. Emma swept in like a summer breeze, all laughter and light. Unlike Rachel's classic, understated style, Emma embraced bold fashion choices. Tonight, it was a red dress that hugged her curves and showcased her long legs. Her blonde hair fell in perfect waves down her back, and her makeup enhanced her naturally striking features. "Happy birthday!" Rachel exclaimed, embracing her cousin warmly. "Thank you for doing all this," Emma replied, holding Rachel at arm's length to look at her. "You always take such good care of everyone." Michael stepped forward to give Emma a hug that lasted just a beat too long. "Happy birthday, Emma," he said, his voice softer than usual. Rachel noticed something pass between them. A look, perhaps, or some subtle communication she couldn't quite identify. She pushed the thought away. This was Emma, her beloved cousin, practically her sister. The doorbell rang again, announcing the arrival of other guests: Rachel's parents, Harold and Martha, Emma's brother Jason and his wife Diane, and several mutual friends. Soon the house was filled with conversation and laughter. During dinner, Rachel couldn't help but notice how often Michael's gaze found Emma, how he laughed a little too enthusiastically at her jokes, how he seemed to position himself near her whenever possible. It was probably nothing, she told herself. Emma had always been magnetic, drawing people to her with her vibrant personality and infectious laugh. "So, Emma, how's the new job going?" asked Martha, Rachel's mother. Emma beamed. "It's amazing! The marketing firm is exactly what I was looking for after years of corporate drudgery. I finally feel like I'm doing what I was meant to do." "That's wonderful," Rachel said sincerely. Emma had bounced between jobs for years, never quite finding her place. Rachel had always admired her cousin's courage in continually reinventing herself, even as she appreciated the stability of her own life. As the evening progressed, Rachel found herself observing the dynamics of the room rather than participating fully. Something felt off, but she couldn't put her finger on exactly what it was. Michael was being attentive to their guests, filling wine glasses and engaging in animated conversations, particularly with Emma. When it came time for cake, Rachel dimmed the lights while Michael carried in the chocolate mousse creation, a light with 35 candles. Everyone sang "Happy Birthday," and Emma closed her eyes to make a wish before blowing out the flames in one graceful breath. "What did you wish for?" Jason teased his sister. Emma's eyes flickered briefly to Michael before she laughed and said, "If I tell you, it won't come true." Later, as guests began to leave, Rachel busied herself with cleanup, waving away offers of help. In the kitchen, she loaded the dishwasher and wrapped leftovers, finding comfort in the familiar routine. She didn't immediately notice when Michael entered. "Need any help?" he asked, leaning against the counter. "I'm almost done," she replied. "Did everyone leave?" "Almost. Emma's still here. She wanted to thank you properly before leaving." Rachel wiped her hands on a dish towel. "She doesn't need to thank me. It's what family does." As she walked back into the living room, Rachel stopped abruptly in the doorway. Through the partially open front door, she could see Michael and Emma on the porch. They weren't doing anything explicitly wrong, just standing close, talking in low voices, but something about their posture, the intimacy of their proximity, sent a chill through her. When Emma reached up to adjust Michael's collar, letting her hand linger on his chest, Rachel felt the foundation of her carefully constructed life begin to crack. 3 weeks after Emma's birthday party, Rachel still couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. Michael had been coming home later than usual, claiming extra work due to a new client. His phone, once carelessly left on tables or countertops, was now perpetually in his pocket. Twice she had entered a room to find him abruptly ending phone calls. The signs were there, but Rachel refused to acknowledge what they might mean. On a crisp Saturday morning in October, Rachel sipped her coffee on the back patio, enjoying the changing leaves in their garden. She had the day to herself. Michael had left early for what he described as an emergency client meeting. Rachel planned to use the time to catch up on design plans for the Matthews home renovation, her biggest project of the year. Her phone chimed with a text message from her friend Diane, Jason's wife. "Brunch at Maple Street Cafe? I need adult conversation after a week with sick kids." Rachel smiled and replied immediately. She could work later, Some time with Diane might lift her spirits and distract her from the growing unease about her marriage. The cafe was busy when Rachel arrived, but she spotted Diane at a corner table near the window. With her practical bob and minimal makeup, Diane had always been the sensible counterpoint to Emma's flamboyance. "You're a lifesaver," Diane said as Rachel sat down. "If I had to spend another minute discussing Minecraft or listening to Baby Shark, I might have lost my mind." Rachel laughed. "Happy to be your escape. How are the kids feeling now?" "Much better, which means they're back to having endless energy. Jason took them to his parents for the day so I could regain my sanity." Diane studied Rachel's face. "But enough about my chaos. You look tired. Everything okay?" Rachel hesitated. She hadn't shared her concerns with anyone, partly because speaking them aloud would make them real. But Diane was family, and yet distant enough from the situation to offer perspective. "I'm not sure," Rachel admitted. "Michael's been different lately. Distant, always working late or on his phone." Diane's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "Have you asked him about it?" "Every time I do, he says it's just work stress, but—" Rachel trailed off, stirring her coffee absently. "But you don't believe him," Diane finished for her. "I don't know what to believe. 20 years of marriage, and suddenly I feel like I'm living with a stranger." Rachel looked up. "I sound paranoid, don't I?" Before Diane could answer, the waitress arrived with their food. As they ate, the conversation drifted to safer topics. Diane's children, Rachel's latest design project, plans for Thanksgiving. Rachel was grateful for the reprieve from her worried thoughts. After brunch, they decided to walk through the nearby shopping center. As they passed a high-end jewelry store, Diane suddenly froze. "Let's go in here," she said, pulling Rachel toward a boutique on the opposite side. "What? I thought you wanted to check out that new home decor shop," Rachel said, confused by Diane's sudden urgency. "Changed my mind," Diane replied too quickly. "I need to look for a dress for Jason's company party." Later, as they parted in the parking lot, Diane hugged Rachel tightly. "Trust your instincts," she whispered, "and call me any time, day or night." Something about Diane's behavior nagged at Rachel during the drive home. Her friend had seemed almost nervous after brunch, checking her watch repeatedly and steering them away from certain stores. The abrupt change had happened after they passed the jewelry store. Rachel's stomach twisted as a thought occurred to her. Pulling into her driveway, she sat in the car for a moment, gathering her courage. Then, instead of going inside, she turned around and drove back to the shopping center. The jewelry store was upscale, with elegant displays and soft lighting. Rachel entered hesitantly, feeling out of place in her casual Saturday outfit. "May I help you?" asked a smartly dressed sales associate. "I'm not sure," Rachel replied honestly. "My husband might have been in recently." "Michael Sullivan? I was wondering if he had picked up something we had on hold." The associate's polite smile faltered slightly. "Sullivan? Yes, he was in yesterday, but he already collected the necklace. It was quite a beautiful piece. The diamond pendant? He mentioned it was for a special occasion." Rachel's heart pounded in her ears. "Yes, the necklace. Did he happen to mention what the occasion was? I've been so busy lately, I can't keep track." The woman's professional demeanor wavered. "He said it was an anniversary gift. 35th birthday, I believe. I remember because we discussed how the 35 diamond accents around the center stone were particularly appropriate." The floor seemed to tilt beneath Rachel's feet. 35th birthday. Emma's 35th birthday. The party had been 3 weeks ago. "Thank you," she managed to say, turning to leave before her composure cracked entirely. Rachel drove home in a fog, muscle memory guiding her through familiar streets while her mind raced. A diamond necklace, expensive enough to be purchased at that exclusive jeweler. For her cousin, for Emma. At home, Rachel moved on autopilot, changing into comfortable clothes and trying to focus on her design work. But the images on her computer screen blurred as tears threatened. She picked up her phone several times to call Michael. But what would she say? that she knew he had bought an expensive gift for her cousin. That wouldn't prove anything other than generosity. Around 5 o'clock, her phone rang. It was Emma. "Rachel, I was hoping to catch you. Michael mentioned you were home alone today, and I thought maybe we could grab dinner. There's that new Italian place downtown we've been talking about trying." Rachel's throat tightened. Michael had told Emma she was alone. "Actually, I'm in the middle of a project with a deadline," she lied. "Rain check." "Oh, sure." Emma sounded disappointed. "Everything okay? You sound strange." "Just focused on work. We'll talk soon." Rachel ended the call and immediately switched her phone to silent. As darkness fell, Rachel sat in the growing shadows of her living room, not bothering to turn on lights. The house felt suddenly alien. The furniture, the photographs, even the smell of the lavender candles she always burned. Had her entire life been built on an illusion? At 9:37 p.m., headlights swept across the wall as Michael's car pulled into the driveway. Rachel remained seated, waiting. The front door opened, and Michael called out her name. "In here," she replied, her voice steadier than she expected. Michael appeared in the doorway, switching on the light. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" His tone was casual, but Rachel noticed how his eyes darted around the room, as if assessing the situation. "How was your client meeting?" she asked, ignoring his question. "Productive. We've finally got the Donaldson portfolio on track." He loosened his tie. "Have you eaten?" "I grabbed something downtown." Downtown, where the new Italian restaurant was located, where Emma had suggested they meet for dinner. "I wasn't hungry," Rachel said. Then, unable to maintain the charade any longer, "I saw Diane today." Something flickered across Michael's face. "Oh? How is she?" "She seemed anxious to keep me away from certain stores at the mall, particularly the jewelry store where you bought Emma a diamond necklace for her 35th birthday." The silence that followed was deafening. Michael's expression shifted from surprise to calculation to resignation in the space of seconds. "Rachel," he began, but she cut him off. "Please don't insult me by lying." "Not now." Michael sank into the chair opposite her. For a moment, he looked like he might try to deny it, but then his shoulders slumped. "It wasn't supposed to happen," he said quietly. "We never intended to hurt you." "We?" The word was like a knife. "So you admit it. You and Emma." Michael looked up, his eyes meeting hers for what felt like the first time in months. "It started about 6 months ago, at your parents' anniversary party. We were talking, and something just clicked." Rachel felt a hysterical laugh bubble up. "Something clicked? With my cousin? The person who's been like a sister to me our entire lives? I never meant for it to go this far," Michael continued, his voice taking on a defensive edge. "But Rachel, we've been drifting apart for years. You must have felt it too. So your solution was to start sleeping with my cousin rather than talk to me about our marriage." The words tasted bitter. Michael had the grace to look ashamed. "I know it's unforgivable." "Does she love you?" Rachel asked, the question escaping before she could stop it. Michael hesitated, then nodded. "And I love her, in a way I haven't felt in a long time." The admission, so simple and yet so devastating, struck Rachel like a physical blow. 20 years of memories, of building a life together, reduced to a long time, as if their marriage had been nothing more than a lengthy prelude to this betrayal. "Get out," Rachel whispered. "Rachel, we should talk about this. Get out." Her voice rose, fueled by a surge of anger that burned through the shock. "I don't want to see your face right now. I can't even look at you." Michael stood, seemingly relieved to escape the conversation. "I'll go to a hotel tonight. We can talk tomorrow when things are calmer." As he moved toward the door, Rachel called after him, one final question burning in her mind. "Does everyone know? Am I the last person to find out that my husband and my cousin are having an affair?" Michael turned, his expression a mixture of guilt and pity that made Rachel's stomach turn. "I don't know what people know or suspect. We've been discreet." "Discreet?" Rachel laughed bitterly. "You bought her a diamond necklace from Miller's Jewelers." The The sales associate remembered you perfectly. That doesn't sound very discreet to me. Michael's face darkened. I'm sorry it had to happen this way. I truly am. But maybe it's for the best. We both deserve a chance at real happiness. As the front door closed behind him, Rachel remained motionless. The words, "Sorry, honey, but your cousin is so much better," echoing in her mind. Not spoken aloud, but implied in every explanation Michael had offered. The perfect life she thought she had built was crumbling around her, and she had no idea how to begin picking up the pieces. The week following Michael's confession passed in a blur for Rachel. She moved through her days like a ghost, showing up for client meetings, responding to emails, and maintaining a facade of normalcy, while internally, she was in freefall. Sleep became elusive, replaced by endless loops of memories she now questioned. Had that business trip last spring been with Emma? Was Michael thinking of her cousin when they celebrated their anniversary in May? Michael had returned the morning after his confession to collect clothes and toiletries. The conversation had been stilted, practical. "I'll be staying at the Westridge Hotel for now," he'd said, not meeting her eyes. "Take whatever time you need. My lawyer will contact yours when you're ready to discuss arrangements." "Your lawyer?" Rachel had repeated numbly. "You already have a lawyer." Michael had the decency to look embarrassed. It seemed prudent. Now, sitting in her kitchen on a rainy Friday afternoon, Rachel stared at her untouched sandwich, while her best friend Carolyn paced the room. "I still can't believe it," Carolyn said for perhaps the 10th time. "Emma? Of all people. I always thought she was self-centered, but this is beyond anything I could have imagined. I keep thinking I must have missed something," Rachel said quietly. "Some sign that my marriage was falling apart, that my cousin was betraying me." Carolyn stopped pacing and sat across from Rachel. "This is not your fault. Do you hear me? Michael and Emma made these choices. They're the ones who destroyed the trust." Rachel nodded mechanically, having heard variations of this reassurance from the few people she'd told about the situation. Her parents had been devastated, her father threatening to confront Michael until Rachel begged him not to. Her mother had taken to calling multiple times a day, her worry evident in every conversation. "Have you heard from either of them?" Carolyn asked cautiously. "Michael texts occasionally about logistical things, the mortgage payment, mail that arrived for him." Rachel pushed her plate away. "Emma sent flowers with a note saying she wants to explain. As if there's any explanation that could possibly matter." "The audacity," Carolyn muttered. "What are you going to do?" It was the question Rachel had been avoiding. What was she going to do? At 45, she had to rebuild her entire life from scratch. The future she had planned, retirement with Michael, traveling together, growing old side by side, had evaporated overnight. "I don't know," she admitted. "Right now, I'm just trying to get through each day." Carolyn reached across the table and squeezed Rachel's hand. "You'll figure it out, and I'll be here every step of the way. We all will." After Carolyn left, Rachel wandered through the house she had lovingly decorated over the years. Every room held memories. The dining room where they'd hosted countless dinners, the living room where they'd exchanged Christmas gifts, the study where they'd planned their financial future. Even the garden had been a joint project, with Michael building the stone pathways while Rachel selected and planted the perennials that bloomed year after year. In their bedroom, her bedroom now, Rachel opened the closet to find Michael's side half empty. The practical reality of his absence hit her anew. On impulse, she pulled open his dresser drawer. He'd left behind the things he rarely wore: old t-shirts, worn sweaters, mismatched socks. As she moved to close the drawer, her fingers caught on something in the back corner, a small velvet pouch. Rachel's heart raced as she removed it. Inside was a pair of diamond earrings she'd never seen before. A small card accompanied them to match the necklace. "All my love, M." The evidence in her hand made the betrayal freshly vivid. Rachel sank to the floor, clutching the earrings until the diamonds cut into her palm. Rage, hot and sudden, replaced the numbness she'd been feeling. In a burst of motion, she stood and hurled the earrings against the wall, where they bounced harmlessly onto the carpet. Her phone rang, startling her. It was a number she didn't recognize. "Hello," she answered, her voice rough with emotion. "Rachel, it's Nathan. Nathan Sullivan, Michael's brother." They had always gotten along well, though their contact had been limited to family gatherings a few times a year. Nathan lived in Boston, a 3-hour drive away, and was busy with his career as a pediatric surgeon. "Nathan," she said, surprised, "how are you?" "I should be asking you that," he replied, his deep voice familiar and yet different from Michael's. "I just heard about everything. I'm so sorry, Rachel." Something about his genuine concern broke through the walls she'd been carefully maintaining. "It's been awful," she admitted, tears threatening again. "I can imagine. Listen, I'm in town for a medical conference this weekend. Could we meet for coffee tomorrow? I'd like to check on you in person." Rachel hesitated. Being around anyone connected to Michael felt complicated. But Nathan had always been kind, and unlike her other in-laws, had never treated her as an outsider. "That would be nice," she found herself saying. "Do you know Willow's Cafe on 5th Street? They arranged to meet at 11 the next morning. After ending the call, Rachel felt a small measure of relief. Nathan had always been the steadier of the Sullivan brothers, thoughtful where Michael was impulsive, patient where Michael was demanding. Having at least one person from her married life acknowledge what had happened without making excuses felt surprisingly comforting. Saturday morning arrived with sunshine that seemed at odds with Rachel's mood. She dressed with more care than she had all week, applying light makeup and choosing a casual but flattering outfit. It was the first time she'd made an effort with her appearance since learning about the affair, and the simple act of putting herself together helped restore a fragment of her shattered confidence. Willow's Cafe was busy with the weekend crowd, but Rachel spotted Nathan immediately. At 44, he was younger than Michael by 4 years, but looked older somehow. His dark hair already salt and pepper, his face bearing the kind of lines that came from concentration rather than laughter. When he saw her, his smile was warm but tinged with sadness. "Rachel," he said, standing to embrace her, "thank you for meeting me." They ordered coffee and found a quiet table in the corner. For a moment, neither spoke, the awkwardness of their situation hanging between them. "How much do you know?" Rachel finally asked. Nathan sighed. "Enough. Michael called me last weekend to tell me he was leaving you for Emma. I couldn't believe what I was hearing." "That makes 2 of us," Rachel said with a bitter smile. "I want you to know that I told him exactly what I thought of his behavior," Nathan continued, his jaw tight with controlled anger. "What they've done to you is unforgivable." The validation from Michael's own brother brought fresh tears to Rachel's eyes. She blinked them away, determined not to break down in public. "I appreciate that," she said softly. "Most of Michael's family has gone silent. I assume they're taking his side, or at least not wanting to get involved." "They're wrong," Nathan said firmly. "And I told my parents as much. Dad seemed embarrassed, but Mom—" He trailed off. "Let me guess. Your mother thinks I should fight for my marriage?" Rachel had never quite won over her mother-in-law, who viewed Michael as perpetually beyond reproach. Nathan grimaced. "Something like that. But I'm not here to defend them or Michael. I'm here because I care about you, Rachel. You've been part of my family for 20 years, and that doesn't end because my brother made the worst mistake of his life." His words touched her deeply. "Thank you, Nathan. That means more than you know." As they talked, Rachel found herself opening up about the pain and humiliation she'd been experiencing. Nathan listened without judgment, occasionally sharing his own perspective on Michael's character flaws, his tendency toward self-justification, his difficulty accepting responsibility for his mistakes. "He's always wanted what he doesn't have," Nathan observed. "Even as kids, my toys were always more interesting than his, until I gave him one. Then he'd lose interest. And now he has Emma," Rachel said quietly. "I wonder how long before he loses interest in her, too." Nathan reached across the table to cover her hand with his. "I know it doesn't help now, But Michael will regret this. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but someday he'll realize what he threw away. As their coffee grew cold, their conversation shifted to other topics. Nathan's work, Rachel's design business, books they'd read recently. For the first time in a week, Rachel found herself genuinely engaged, even laughing at Nathan's self-deprecating stories about hospital mishaps. When they finally parted, Nathan hugged her again, longer this time. "I'm here for you, whatever you need, even if it's just someone to vent to who knows exactly how infuriating Michael can be." Rachel smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "I might take you up on that." "Please do." "And Rachel," he hesitated, then continued, "don't let what Michael did make you doubt yourself. You're an extraordinary woman. He's the one who couldn't see what was right in front of him." Driving home, Rachel felt something she hadn't experienced since discovering the affair. A tiny spark of hope. Not that her marriage could be saved. She wasn't sure she would even want that now, but that she herself might be saved. That somewhere beyond the pain and betrayal, a future existed where she could be whole again. That evening, as Rachel watered her garden in the fading light, her phone chimed with a text. It was from Nathan. "Thanks for meeting today. It reminded me how much I've always enjoyed our conversations. Heading back to Boston tomorrow, but let's stay in touch." Rachel replied immediately, "I'd like that. Thank you for being a friend when I needed one most." She set her phone down and looked around at the garden she had created, the flowers still blooming despite the approaching autumn. They would return next spring, she knew, regardless of what happened in the coming months. Nature had its own resilience, its own way of renewing itself after the harshest winters. Perhaps she could learn something from that persistence, that quiet determination to bloom again. For the first time since her world had collapsed, Rachel slept through the night without waking to the ache of betrayal. Instead, she dreamed of spring gardens and new beginnings, with a tall figure whose face remained in shadow, but whose presence brought unexpected comfort. By mid-November, 6 weeks after Michael's confession, Rachel had established a new routine. Mornings were for work. She had thrown herself into her interior design projects with renewed focus, finding that client meetings and detailed planning provided a welcome distraction from her personal turmoil. Afternoons often included therapy sessions with Dr. Winters, a compassionate woman who specialized in helping people through divorce and betrayal. Evenings were the hardest. The empty house, a constant reminder of what she had lost. Today, Rachel found herself staring at legal documents spread across her dining room table. Her attorney, Patricia Mendez, had sent over the initial divorce papers filed by Michael's lawyer. The clinical language describing the end of 20 years together felt surreal. "Irreconcilable differences," Rachel murmured, tracing the phrase with her finger. Such a bland term for the devastation of discovering your husband in love with your cousin. Her phone buzzed with an incoming call from Nathan. Their coffee meeting had evolved into regular conversations, sometimes brief check-ins, other times longer discussions that left Rachel feeling understood in a way few others managed. "How are you holding up?" Nathan asked after she answered, staring at divorce papers and contemplating whether it's too early for wine. Rachel replied with a weak laugh. "It's 5 o'clock somewhere," Nathan said. "But seriously, are you okay?" Rachel sighed, closing the folder containing the documents. "I'm taking it day by day. The legal stuff makes it all so final." "I know. Listen, I have news that might distract you for a minute. I've accepted a position at Memorial Hospital in Hartford. I'm moving back to Connecticut next month." Rachel sat up straighter. "Nathan, that's wonderful. Boston will miss you, but I'm selfishly glad you'll be closer." "Me too. It's a great opportunity professionally, and—" He paused. "I've been thinking a lot about family lately. What it means. Who it includes." The warmth in his voice made Rachel smile. "When do you start?" "January the 2nd. I'm looking at apartments this weekend, actually. I was wondering if you might be free to give me your expert design opinion on a couple of places. No pressure if you're busy." Rachel glanced at the divorce papers. Another weekend alone with her thoughts held little appeal. "I'd love to. Text me the details?" After they hung up, Rachel felt lighter than she had in weeks. The prospect of helping Nathan with something as normal as apartment hunting offered a welcome reprieve from the constant cycle of grief and anger that had become her daily emotional landscape. Later that evening, while preparing dinner for one, Rachel heard her doorbell ring. She wasn't expecting visitors, and her friends had all taken to texting before stopping by, aware of her need for space. Cautiously, she approached the front door and peered through the peephole. Emma stood on the porch, shifting nervously from foot to foot. Rachel's heart hammered in her chest. She hadn't seen or spoken to her cousin since discovering the affair. Part of her wanted to ignore the doorbell, pretend she wasn't home. But a stronger part, the part that had spent weeks processing her anger in therapy, wanted to face Emma directly. Taking a deep breath, Rachel opened the door but remained firmly in the doorway, blocking entry. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. Emma looked terrible, her usually perfect appearance disheveled, dark circles under her eyes. "I needed to see you," she said, "to explain, to apologize." "Apologize," Rachel repeated flatly. "For sleeping with my husband or for lying to my face for months?" Emma flinched. "Both. All of it. Rachel, I know what we did was unforgivable." "Then why are you here?" Rachel interrupted, suddenly exhausted by the prospect of this conversation. "If you know it's unforgivable, what's the point?" "Because I'm losing everything," Emma blurted out, tears welling in her eyes. He's not who I thought he was. And I've lost you, the person who's been more like a sister than a cousin my entire life. My parents can barely look at me. Jason won't let me see my nieces and nephews." A month ago, Rachel might have felt satisfaction at Emma's distress. Now, she just felt hollow. "What did you expect would happen? That everyone would celebrate your happiness at my expense?" "No, Emma stopped, seeming to realize the selfishness of her words. "I wasn't thinking about consequences. I just got caught up in the excitement, the attention. Michael made me feel special. And that was worth destroying our family?" Rachel asked quietly. Emma looked down, tears streaming freely now. "I thought I was in love. I thought he was in love with me. But now, I'm not sure about anything." Rachel studied her cousin, this woman she had trusted implicitly for decades, who had betrayed her in the most intimate way possible. She felt a flicker of curiosity beneath her anger. "What do you mean, you're not sure?" Emma wiped her face with her sleeve, a childlike gesture that reminded Rachel of their shared childhood. "He's different now that we're living together. Controlling, critical. Nothing I do is quite right. He complains about my spending, my friends, even the way I load the dishwasher." A bitter laugh escaped Rachel before she could stop it. "Welcome to the real Michael Sullivan, the one I've known for 20 years. "I think I made a terrible mistake," Emma whispered. The admission hung in the air between them. Rachel felt a complicated mixture of emotions, vindication, pity, and a persistent anger that refused to dissipate completely. "That's not my problem," Rachel finally said. "You made your choices, Emma. Now you have to live with them, just like I'm living with the consequences you both forced on me." Emma nodded, looking utterly defeated. "I understand. I miss you, Rachel. I know I have no right to, but I do." For a moment, Rachel allowed herself to remember their shared history, childhood summers at their grandparents' lake house, teenage confidences, being each other's bridesmaids. The grief for that lost relationship hit her freshly. "I miss who I thought you were," Rachel said softly. "But that person wouldn't have done this to me. I need you to leave now." As Emma turned to go, she paused on the steps. "He still has feelings for you, you know. He compares me to you all the time. Rachel would never do this. Rachel always knew how to handle that. It's like he's punishing me for not being you." The revelation should have brought satisfaction. Instead, it only underscored the toxicity of the situation. "Then you're both getting exactly what you deserve," Rachel said, closing the door firmly. That night, Rachel called Nathan and told him about Emma's visit. "She's realizing Michael isn't the prize she thought he was," Nathan commented, after listening to the whole story. "I almost felt sorry for her," Rachel admitted. "Almost. You're allowed to have complicated feelings about this," Nathan reassured her. "It doesn't mean you've forgiven either of them." Their conversation continued late into the evening, with Nathan sharing stories about Michael's childhood patterns of becoming infatuated with something new, then growing disenchanted when the reality didn't match his fantasy. "I hate to say it, but I'm not surprised he's already showing his true colors with Emma," Nathan said. "The relationship was built on excitement and forbidden attraction. Once that wore off, all that's left is the day-to-day reality." "A reality I lived with for 20 years, Rachel pointed out. "And you managed it with grace," Nathan replied. "Emma doesn't have your patience or maturity. This was always going to implode." After they hung up, Rachel found herself pondering Nathan's words. There was a certain validation in knowing that Michael and Emma's relationship was already showing cracks, but it didn't erase the pain of betrayal or magically rebuild her confidence. That would take time and continued effort on her part. The following weekend, Rachel met Nathan as planned to view apartments in Hartford. The 3-hour drive from Boston had been worth it, he insisted, to have her expert opinion. They toured 3 properties, with Rachel pointing out potential in one that had great natural light despite outdated fixtures. "This space could be transformed with the right furniture arrangement," she explained, gesturing toward the living room with its wall of windows. "And that kitchen just needs new cabinet facings and countertops, not a complete renovation." Nathan watched her with admiration as she outlined possibilities. "You're really good at this, you know, seeing potential where others might just see problems." "It's my job," Rachel said with a modest shrug. "Not just with spaces," Nathan continued. "With people too. You always saw the best in Michael, even when the rest of us wondered what you were doing with him." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "You never said anything." "Not my place," Nathan replied. "And, anyway, you seemed happy. That's what mattered." After the apartment viewings, they found a small bistro for lunch. Over salads and iced tea, their conversation flowed easily from Nathan's new job to Rachel's latest design project. For a few hours, Rachel forgot about divorce papers and betrayal, lost in discussions about color schemes and furniture styles for Nathan's new place. "I trust your judgment completely," Nathan said, when she suggested a particular sofa would work well in the apartment he'd decided on. "When can I book your professional services?" Rachel laughed. "Friends and family discount. It'll cost you exactly 1 dinner and ongoing Sullivan family gossip." "Deal," Nathan agreed with a warm smile. "Speaking of family gossip, have you heard the latest about Michael and Emma?" Rachel hesitated. Part of her wanted to maintain distance from her estranged husband's life, but curiosity won out. "What now?" "My mother called yesterday. Apparently, Emma made a scene at some charity event Michael's firm sponsored. Something about him flirting with a colleague. Mom was mortified. You know how she feels about public displays." Rachel did know. Eleanor Sullivan valued propriety above almost everything else. I can imagine her reaction. She actually said, and I quote, "Rachel would never have embarrassed the family like this." Nathan looked amused. "I think she's experiencing buyer's remorse about her new daughter-in-law prospect." "I'm not sure that makes me feel better or worse," Rachel admitted. Nathan's expression softened. "How are you really doing with all of this? The divorce proceedings, I mean." Rachel traced the condensation on her glass. "Some days are better than others. The logistics are straightforward. Dividing assets, selling the house eventually. It's the emotional part that's harder. Building a new future I never planned for." "If anyone can do it, it's you," Nathan said with quiet confidence. "You've always been the strongest Sullivan, even though you don't carry the name by blood." His faith in her brought tears to Rachel's eyes. Not tears of sadness this time, but of gratitude for his unwavering support. "Thank you for today," she said, "for helping me remember there's life beyond all this mess." "Any time," Nathan replied, his gaze holding hers a moment longer than usual. "That's what friends are for, right?" As they parted ways in the parking lot, Nathan surprised her with a warm hug. "I'll see you in a few weeks. Moving day is December 15th. Don't forget our deal about the decorating consultation." "I won't," Rachel promised, feeling a tentative excitement about the future for the first time in months. Driving home, Rachel realized that the constant ache in her chest had eased. The pain wasn't gone. She doubted it ever would disappear completely. But it had become manageable. A dull throb rather than the sharp agony of those first few weeks. Small steps forward, Dr. Winters would call it. Progress measured not in grand gestures, but in moments like today, when she had found herself laughing genuinely, engaging with life again, imagining possibilities beyond her broken marriage. As Rachel turned onto her street, she noticed Michael's car parked in front of their house. Her momentary peace evaporated, replaced by the familiar tension that now accompanied any interaction with her husband. Whatever he wanted, Rachel squared her shoulders, ready to face it with the newfound strength she was gradually rebuilding, one small step at a time. Rachel pulled into the driveway, deliberately taking her time gathering her purse and phone before exiting the car. Through the windshield, she could see Michael pacing on the front porch, checking his watch impatiently. Some things never changed. When she finally approached, Michael's appearance surprised her. His usually impeccable style had slipped. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair uncombed, and the shadows under his eyes suggested he hadn't been sleeping well. "Rachel," he said, straightening as she climbed the steps. "I've been waiting for almost an hour." "I wasn't aware we had an appointment," she replied coolly, unlocking the front door. She hesitated before adding, "You can come in for 15 minutes. I have things to do." Michael followed her into the house, glancing around as if checking whether anything had changed in his absence. Rachel remained standing, a silent indication that this wouldn't be a lengthy visit. "What do you need, Michael?" she asked, crossing her arms. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I wanted to talk about the house. My lawyer says we should consider selling it soon, before the divorce is finalized. The market is good right now." "Dirt? Patricia advised me we could wait if I wanted to," Rachel countered, referring to her attorney. "I haven't decided what I want to do yet." Michael's jaw tightened, that familiar expression of frustration when things didn't go exactly as he planned. "It would be simpler to liquidate our shared assets now. Make a clean break. For you, maybe," Rachel said. "This is still my home. I'm not ready to give it up because it's simpler for you. Be reasonable, Rachel. This place is too big for one person. The maintenance alone—" "I said I haven't decided," she interrupted firmly. "My lawyer will contact yours when I make a decision. Is that all?" Michael looked around again, a strange expression crossing his face. "The house looks good. You've rearranged some things." The comment caught Rachel off guard. She had indeed made changes, moving furniture, replacing their wedding photos with artwork, rearranging bookshelves to fill the gaps left by Michael's belongings. The space was slowly becoming hers alone. "Yes," she acknowledged simply. An awkward silence fell between them. Michael seemed uncharacteristically hesitant, as if there was something else he wanted to say but couldn't find the words. "How are you?" he finally asked, his tone gentler than before. The question ignited a flare of anger in Rachel's chest. "How am I? After you left me for my cousin? I'm just wonderful, Michael. Never better." He flinched at her sarcasm. "I deserve that. I know I do. I've been thinking about you, wondering if you're okay." "I'm surviving," Rachel said, unwilling to give him more. "Unlike my relationship with Emma, which is beyond resurrection thanks to your affair." Michael's expression darkened at the mention of Emma. "Things aren't always what they seem, Rachel." "Meaning what, exactly?" He shook his head. "Nothing. Just that life is complicated." Rachel studied her husband. This man she had once thought she knew completely. Now he seemed like a stranger, albeit one whose mannerisms and habits were intimately familiar. "Your 15 minutes are almost up," she reminded him. "If there's nothing else about the house—" "I saw Nathan's car here yesterday," Michael interrupted abruptly. "What was he doing in town?" Rachel raised an eyebrow, surprised by the question and its underlying accusatory tone. "He's moving to Hartford next month, taking a position at Memorial Hospital. He wanted my opinion on apartments." "Since when are you and Nathan so close?" Michael pressed. "Since my husband left me for my cousin, and his brother was decent enough to check if I was okay," Rachel replied sharply. "Not that it's any of your business who I spend time with anymore." Michael's face flushed with what looked remarkably like jealousy. "Nathan's always had a soft spot for you, even back in college, before we were married." The implication hung in the air, unexpected and oddly disconcerting. Rachel had never thought of Nathan that way. He had simply been Michael's kind, quieter brother who'd always treated her with respect. "I think you should leave now," Rachel said, moving toward the door. "Your lawyer can call mine about the house." Michael didn't move immediately. "Just be careful, Rachel. Nathan isn't as straightforward as he seems. Unlike you, the model of honesty and integrity?" Rachel laughed bitterly. "Goodbye, Michael." After he finally left, Rachel stood in the foyer, processing the strange encounter. Michael's concern about Nathan seemed wildly misplaced given the circumstances. Was he actually jealous of his brother's friendship with her? The thought was both absurd and, strangely, slightly empowering. Rachel's phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "Hope the rest of your weekend is going well. Thanks again for your help yesterday." She smiled, typing back, "Anytime. Just had an odd visit from your brother. Apparently, he doesn't approve of our friendship." Nathan's response came quickly. "Typical Michael. Only values things when someone else has them." The observation was so accurate that Rachel laughed out loud, the sound echoing in the empty house. By early December, the holiday season was in full swing, bringing with it a fresh wave of emotional challenges. This would be Rachel's first Christmas alone in 20 years. Carolyn had invited her to join her family for Christmas Eve, and her parents were expecting her for Christmas Day. But the prospect of navigating holiday traditions without Michael still felt daunting. To distract herself, Rachel threw her energy into helping Nathan prepare for his move. They spoke almost daily now, their conversations ranging from practical matters like furniture delivery schedules to deeper discussions about family dynamics and personal goals. "You're the only good thing to come out of this mess," Rachel told him one evening as they discussed his moving plans over the phone. "I never realized what a friend I had in you until everything fell apart." "I've always valued our connection," Nathan replied warmly. "I just never wanted to intrude on your and Michael's life. Maybe I should have made more effort before." The weekend before Nathan's move, Rachel was sorting through Christmas decorations when her doorbell rang. She opened it to find a delivery person holding an enormous arrangement of winter flowers, white roses, holly, and silver-blue thistles artfully arranged in a crystal vase. "Rachel Sullivan?" the delivery person confirmed. "Yes, that's me," Rachel replied, surprised. "Sign here, please." After placing the stunning arrangement on her dining room table, Rachel opened the small card tucked among the blooms. "Thank you for being my light in a dark year. Looking forward to new beginnings. Nathan." The thoughtfulness of the gesture brought tears to Rachel's eyes. She immediately called to thank him. "You shouldn't have, but I'm glad you did," she said when he answered. "They're absolutely beautiful." "I wanted you to know how much your friendship has meant to me these past months," Nathan said. "And I know the holidays are tough. Thought you could use something festive." Their conversation drifted to Nathan's upcoming move, and Rachel found herself saying, "I could drive up to help, you know. An extra pair of hands might make things easier. You wouldn't mind?" "That would be amazing." Nathan sounded genuinely delighted. "We could get dinner afterward to celebrate. Make a day of it." "It's a plan," Rachel agreed, surprised by how much she was looking forward to it. 3 days later, Rachel was loading boxes into Nathan's new apartment, laughing as he struggled to assemble a bookshelf. For a surgeon with supposedly steady hands, you're remarkably bad at this, she teased. Nathan groaned dramatically. Different skill set entirely. I can repair a child's heart, but IKEA instructions might as well be written in Sanskrit. They worked well together, falling into an easy rhythm as they unpacked kitchen items and arranged furniture. By late afternoon, the apartment was taking shape, with Rachel's design suggestions helping to transform the space from generic to personal. "What do you think?" Nathan asked, stepping back to survey the living room they had just arranged. "It has potential," Rachel said, professional eye assessing the space. "Once we add some art to those walls and get proper lighting, it'll feel like home." "We," Nathan repeated with a smile. Rachel blushed slightly. "Figure of speech, but I'm happy to help with finishing touches. Professional courtesy." "I'd like that," Nathan said, his gaze holding hers for a moment before he added, "I'm starving. Ready for that dinner I promised?" Nathan had made reservations at an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. As the hostess led them to a corner table with flickering candlelight and soft music, Rachel felt a flutter of unease. This felt very much like a date. Once seated, Nathan must have sensed her discomfort. "Too fancy?" he asked. "We can go somewhere more casual if you'd prefer." "No, it's lovely," Rachel assured him. I'm not sure what this is exactly." Nathan's expression grew serious. "It's dinner with a friend who values your company enormously. Nothing more, nothing less, unless you want it to be." The honesty in his eyes reassured her. "Friends is good," she said with a smile. "I'm still figuring out who I am without Michael. I'm not ready for anything else." "I understand completely," Nathan said, relaxing visibly. "And for the record, I think the woman you're becoming without my brother is pretty remarkable." The evening passed pleasantly, their conversation flowing easily from topic to topic. Rachel found herself laughing more than she had in months. The weight of her divorce temporarily lifted in Nathan's company. As they waited for dessert, Nathan's phone buzzed repeatedly. He glanced at it and frowned. "Everything okay?" Rachel asked. "It's Michael," Nathan said, looking uncomfortable. "He's called 3 times in the last hour." "You should answer. It might be important." Nathan sighed but nodded, excusing himself to take the call outside. When he returned several minutes later, his expression was troubled. "What's wrong?" Rachel asked. "Michael's having some issues with Emma. Apparently, she's been spending money recklessly, running up credit card debt, and there's something about her past he just discovered that's got him upset." Nathan looked genuinely concerned. "He wanted to come over tonight, but I told him I was in the middle of dinner." "Did you mention you were with me?" Rachel asked, curious despite herself. Nathan hesitated before answering. "No, I didn't think it would help the situation." Rachel nodded, understanding his reasoning but feeling a twinge of discomfort at the omission. Were they doing something wrong? No, she decided firmly. Having dinner with her soon-to-be ex-husband's brother wasn't a crime, especially when that brother had become her closest friend. After dinner, Nathan drove her back to his apartment to collect her car. Before she got out, he touched her arm gently. "Thank you for today. For everything, really. Moving would have been miserable without you." "Happy to help," Rachel said sincerely. "That's what friends do." "About Michael's call," Nathan began, looking troubled again. "He mentioned some things about Emma that I'm not sure how to process. I don't want to break his confidence, but I also feel like you might have a right to know." Rachel felt a chill of foreboding. "Know what?" Nathan sighed heavily. "Apparently, Emma has a history of this, pursuing married men, particularly successful ones. Michael found out she did something similar in her last job, got involved with her married boss, caused a huge scandal when his wife found out. The revelation hit Rachel like a physical blow. She's done this before? The betrayal felt freshly painful, knowing it might not have been a momentary lapse, but a pattern. "I'm sorry," Nathan said, squeezing her hand. "I debated whether to tell you, but I thought you deserved the truth." On the drive home, Rachel tried to process this new information. Had Emma deliberately targeted Michael? Had her cousin's betrayal been calculated, rather than a matter of falling in uncontrollable love, as she'd claimed? The possibility made the entire situation even more sordid. When Rachel arrived home, her house felt especially empty and silent. She moved through the rooms, turning on lights against the darkness, trying to shake the hollow feeling in her chest. As she passed the dining room, the flower arrangement from Nathan caught her eye. Still vibrant and beautiful, a physical reminder that not everyone in her life had betrayed her. Her phone chimed with a text. "Made it home safely?" Nathan had asked. "Yes, just got in," she replied. Then, after a moment's thought, added, "Thank you for today, for the flowers, for everything, really." "Sweet dreams, Rachel," he responded. "Talk tomorrow." As Rachel prepared for bed, her thoughts drifted to the strange day, helping Nathan move, their candlelit dinner, the revelations about Emma, the undeniable comfort she found in Nathan's company. Life had taken so many unexpected turns in the past months. The path she had thought she would walk forever had disappeared, forcing her to find a new way forward. What that way looked like remained unclear. But, for the first time since Michael's confession, Rachel felt something like anticipation, rather than dread when she thought about the future. It was a small shift, but significant, like the first green shoot after a devastating forest fire. Proof that renewal was possible even in the most barren landscapes. Rachel fell asleep with the memory of Nathan's smile in her mind, a gentle counterbalance to the fresh pain of Emma's calculated betrayal. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, she knew, but it might bring new joys as well. She was finally ready to discover what those might be. The week before Christmas arrived with a heavy snowfall that blanketed Connecticut in pristine white. Rachel stood at her living room window, watching fat flakes spiral down from a gray sky. In years past, she and Michael would have spent the evening by the fireplace, planning their holiday menu and finalizing gift lists. Now, she stood alone. The house quiet, except for the occasional crackle of burning wood in the fireplace she had lit to ward off the chill. Her phone rang, interrupting her melancholy thoughts. It was her attorney, Patricia. "Rachel, I have some concerning news," Patricia said without preamble. "I've just received documentation from Michael's lawyer that shows significant withdrawals from your joint investment account over the past 3 months." Rachel sank onto the sofa. "How significant?" "Nearly $500,000. The timing corresponds with when he moved out." "That's impossible," Rachel gasped. "Those accounts were for our retirement. We both agreed never to touch the principal." Unfortunately, as a joint account holder, he had every legal right to make the withdrawals, Patricia explained, "but this drastically changes our negotiation position for the settlement. I need you to come to my office as soon as possible to review your financial situation." After ending the call, Rachel sat motionless, trying to comprehend this latest betrayal. Money had never been their issue. Both she and Michael earned good incomes, lived within their means, and saved diligently for the future. The investment account represented 15 years of careful planning, a safety net they had built together. What could Michael possibly need $500,000 for? The question plagued her as she drove through snowy streets to Patricia's office the next morning. The meeting confirmed her worst fears. Michael had systematically withdrawn funds shortly after beginning his affair with Emma, with the largest withdrawal occurring just days before he confessed and moved out. He was planning this for months, Rachel realized aloud, her voice hollow, setting aside escape money while pretending everything was normal. Patricia nodded grimly. "It appears so. We'll demand a full accounting during settlement negotiations, but I want to prepare you. Recovering these funds may be difficult, especially if they've already been spent." "On what? What could he possibly have spent $500,000 on in 3 months?" Rachel asked, bewildered. The answer arrived unexpectedly that evening in the form of Rachel Sullivan, Michael's mother, standing on Rachel's doorstep, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. "I need to speak with you," Eleanor said. her usual imperious tone replaced by something verging on desperation. Rachel hesitated, then stepped aside to let her mother-in-law enter. Their relationship had always been cordial, but distant. Eleanor had never quite accepted that her golden boy had chosen a woman from a middle-class background with career ambitions of her own. "Would you like some tea?" Rachel offered, falling back on politeness to mask her confusion about this unexpected visit. "No, thank you," Eleanor replied, remaining standing in the living room. "I'll be direct, Rachel. Michael is in serious trouble, and I believe you might be the only person who can help him." Rachel laughed incredulously. "Help Michael? After everything he's done?" "I understand your anger," Eleanor acknowledged, surprising Rachel. "What he did to you was inexcusable. If James had ever done such a thing—" She trailed off, referring to her husband of nearly 50 years. "But this situation has spiraled beyond a marital indiscretion." "What kind of trouble?" Rachel asked, curiosity overcoming her resentment. Eleanor sank onto the sofa, suddenly looking every one of her 70 years. "Financial trouble, possibly legal trouble as well. This woman, your cousin," she spat the word with undisguised contempt, "has been spending money as if it grows on trees. Designer clothes, jewelry, even a sports car. Michael has been trying to keep up with her demands, but yesterday he discovered something alarming." Rachel sat across from Eleanor, steeling herself. "What did he discover?" "Emma has been transferring large sums to offshore accounts not in her name, but apparently belonging to some man she was involved with before Michael. When Michael confronted her, she claimed it was for an investment opportunity, but he found messages on her phone suggesting otherwise. The pieces clicked into place. The missing investment money, Emma's pattern of targeting wealthy men, Michael's recent distress that Nathan had mentioned. "Let me guess," Rachel said tiredly. "Now, Michael is afraid he's been caught in some kind of financial fraud scheme and possibly money laundering." Eleanor looked startled by Rachel's quick assessment. "Yes, exactly. How did you know?" "Because I know Michael," Rachel replied. "He's not stupid, but he can be incredibly blind when his ego is involved. If Emma flattered him, made him feel powerful and desirable, he would have ignored red flags that would have been obvious to anyone else." "That's a remarkably accurate description," Eleanor admitted. "The situation is dire, Rachel. If these transactions are traced back to Michael, his career would be over. He could face criminal charges." "What does this have to do with me?" Rachel asked, though she was beginning to suspect she knew the answer. "Michael needs character witnesses if this comes to legal action, people who can testify to his usual prudence and integrity. And—" Eleanor paused, clearly uncomfortable. "He may need financial assistance with legal fees. His assets could be frozen during an investigation." The audacity was breathtaking. "Let me be clear," Rachel said, her voice steady despite her growing anger. "Michael emptied our joint investment account, presumably to shower Emma with gifts and fund her mysterious investments. Now that he realizes he's been conned, he wants me, the wife he cheated on and abandoned, to vouch for his character and bail him out financially." Eleanor had the grace to look ashamed. "When you put it that way, it sounds terrible." "It sounds exactly like what it is," Rachel countered. "Unbelievable selfishness. Has Michael considered going to the authorities himself, explaining that he was deceived? He's afraid of the professional consequences. The firm has a morality clause in their partnership agreement. Even if he avoided criminal charges, he could lose his position." Rachel stood, indicating the conversation was over. "I'm sorry, Eleanor, but Michael created this situation. He has to find his own way out of it." Eleanor rose as well, desperation evident in her voice. "Please, Rachel. Whatever your feelings about Michael, you've been part of our family for 20 years. We're still your family, too." The words struck a painful chord. Family. The concept had been shattered so thoroughly in recent months that Rachel wasn't sure what it meant anymore. Family doesn't betray each other the way Michael and Emma betrayed me. she said quietly. "I'll think about what you've said, but I can't promise anything." After Eleanor left, Rachel paced her living room, mind racing. The satisfaction of seeing Michael face consequences for his actions warred with lingering concern for the man who had been her partner for 2 decades. Whatever his flaws, she had never wished destruction upon him. She called Nathan, needing a sounding board for her conflicted thoughts. "Your mother just left my house," she said when he answered. "Did you know about Emma's financial schemes?" Nathan sighed heavily. "Michael called me yesterday in a panic. From what I could gather, he's finally realized Emma isn't who he thought she was. But I didn't know your investment account was involved. Rachel, I'm so sorry." "It's not your fault," she assured him. "I'm just trying to figure out what to do. Part of me thinks he deserves whatever happens, but another part still cares what happens to him." Nathan finished for her. "That's who you are, Rachel. It's one of the things I've always admired about you." They talked for over an hour, weighing options and implications. By the end of the conversation, Rachel had reached a decision. "I'll meet with Michael," she told Nathan. "Hear his side directly. But I won't commit to anything until I know exactly what happened to our money." "That seems fair," Nathan agreed. "Do you want me to be there when you meet with him?" The offer touched her. "No, this is something I need to do alone. But thank you for everything. Always," Nathan replied softly. 2 days before Christmas, Rachel met Michael at a quiet cafe downtown. He looked terrible, unshaven, with dark circles under bloodshot eyes and a haunted expression she had never seen on him before. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice hoarse. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," Rachel replied honestly. "Tell me exactly what's happening, Michael. Everything. No omissions. No spin." Over the next hour, Michael detailed his relationship with Emma and the gradual realization that he had been manipulated. The expensive gifts, the investments that required immediate cash, the lifestyle that drained their savings at an alarming rate. "When did you realize something was wrong?" Rachel asked. Michael stared into his untouched coffee. "About a month ago. I started asking questions about where the money was going, and Emma would get defensive, pick fights to distract me. Then, last week, I found messages on her phone while she was showering. She's been communicating with a man named Carlos, sending him updates on the transfers. Have you confronted her?" "Yes." She denied everything at first, then claimed Carlos was an investment manager handling a special opportunity. But when I insisted on meeting him, she became hysterical, accused me of not trusting her. Michael ran a hand over his face. The next day, I discovered she had transferred another $50,000 from my personal account without my knowledge. She had my password. Rachel shook her head in disbelief. "What happened to the $500,000 from our investment account?" Michael's face crumpled with shame. "Most of it went to these so-called investments. Some went to gifts for Emma, trips, the down payment on her car. I've been a complete fool, Rachel." "Yes, you have," she agreed without malice. "What are you going to do now?" "I don't know. If I go to the authorities, I could lose everything. If I don't, and they discover the transfers anyway, it could be even worse." He looked up, desperation in his eyes. "I know I have no right to ask for your help. What I did to you was unforgivable." "It was," Rachel confirmed, "and I haven't forgiven you. But I also don't want to see you destroy your life completely." Hope flickered across his face. "Does that mean you'll help?" "It means I'll consider it, under certain conditions. First, you need to go to the police. Tell them everything. Cooperate fully. Second, you provide a complete accounting of where every penny of our investment money went and commit to repaying it, even if it takes years. Third, you face whatever professional consequences come your way without dragging me into your defense." Michael looked stunned. "You're not offering to help with legal fees or serve as a character witness?" "No," Rachel said firmly. "I'm offering you the advice that might save what's left of your integrity. What you do with it is your choice." As Rachel drove home from the meeting, snow began falling again. transforming the landscape into a winter wonderland that felt strangely at odds with the ugliness of the situation. She felt drained, but also oddly liberated. For the first time since discovering the affair, she had faced Michael not as a devastated wife, but as a woman in her own right, clear-eyed, strong in her boundaries, compassionate without being a doormat. That evening, she called Nathan to update him on the meeting. "You did the right thing," he told her, setting boundaries while still showing basic humanity. "It's more than many would have done in your position." "I just want this chapter of my life to be over," Rachel admitted. "I'm ready to move forward without constantly looking back." "Speaking of moving forward," Nathan said, "I have a Christmas gift for you. Nothing extravagant, just something I thought you might enjoy. Could I drop it off tomorrow?" The next day, Christmas Eve, Nathan arrived with a beautifully wrapped package. As Rachel invited him in, she noticed how perfectly at ease he seemed in her home, a stark contrast to the tension that had characterized Michael's recent visit. "Should I open it now?" Rachel asked, gesturing to the gift. "Please," Nathan encouraged, settling onto the sofa. Inside the box was a leather-bound sketchbook of exceptional quality, with Rachel Sullivan designs embossed in elegant script on the cover. Accompanying it was a set of professional-grade colored pencils. "You mentioned that you've been thinking about expanding your business, maybe doing more custom furniture design?" Nathan explained. "I thought you might need a place to sketch your ideas." The thoughtfulness of the gift brought tears to Rachel's eyes. "It's perfect," she said softly. "Thank you, Nathan." "Merry Christmas, Rachel," he replied, his expression warm. "Here's to new beginnings in the new year." As they shared hot chocolate by the fire, Rachel found herself looking at Nathan with new eyes. The comfortable friendship they had built over these difficult months had become a lifeline, a source of strength when everything else had crumbled. But there was something else growing too, a quiet attraction she had been hesitant to acknowledge, even to herself. Later, as Nathan prepared to leave for his parents' Christmas Eve dinner, he paused at the door. "What are your plans for tomorrow evening? After you visit your parents?" "Nothing special," Rachel admitted. "Probably just a quiet night at home. Would you consider joining me for dinner? Nothing fancy, just takeout and maybe a movie. I know it's Christmas, but I thought neither of us should be alone all day." The invitation hung in the air, carrying significance beyond the simple words. Rachel found herself nodding. "I'd like that very much." As Nathan left, snow still falling gently around him, Rachel stood in the doorway watching until his car disappeared down the street. This Christmas was nothing like she had imagined a year ago, when her life had seemed settled and certain. Yet amid the pain and betrayal, unexpected gifts had emerged. Her own resilience, renewed self-knowledge, and this evolving relationship with Nathan that brought a quiet joy she hadn't thought possible in the aftermath of such heartbreak. Tomorrow would bring what it would. For tonight, Rachel was content to sit by her fire, sketch in her new book, and allow herself to feel something that had been absent for too long: hope. Spring arrived in Connecticut, with a flourish of tulips and daffodils, nature's reminder that renewal follows even the harshest winters. For Rachel, the changing season mirrored her own transformation over the preceding months. The divorce had been finalized in February, faster than expected due to Michael's eagerness to resolve matters quickly amid his ongoing legal troubles. In the end, he had taken Rachel's advice, contacting authorities about Emma's financial schemes before they discovered the transactions themselves. The resulting investigation had revealed a complex fraud operation involving multiple victims across several states. Emma had disappeared shortly after Michael's confrontation, emptying her bank accounts and leaving no forwarding address. 2 weeks later, she was apprehended at Miami International Airport, attempting to board a flight to Paraguay with a man authorities identified as Carlos Menendez, her longtime accomplice and apparent lover. The scandal had made local headlines. Financial advisor's mistress charged in multi-state fraud scheme. Michael had been questioned extensively, but was ultimately treated as another victim rather than a co-conspirator. Still, the professional consequences had been severe. His firm had asked for his resignation, citing the morality clause and the potential damage to client confidence. At 48, Michael Sullivan was starting over professionally, accepting a position at a smaller firm with a substantial cut in salary and status. Rachel had felt surprisingly little satisfaction at his downfall. The man who had once been the center of her world was now a peripheral figure in her life, someone whose choices had caused immense pain, but who no longer held power over her happiness. On this particular Saturday in April, Rachel stood in the backyard of the colonial house that had once been their shared home, now sold to a young family expecting their first child. The moving truck was loaded with the possessions she had chosen to keep. The rest had been sold or donated. "That's the last box," called a familiar voice. Nathan appeared from the garage carrying a small carton labeled "Kitchen Fragile." "Thank you for helping today," Rachel said, watching as he carefully placed the box in her car rather than the moving truck. "I know you had other things to do." "Nothing more important than this," Nathan replied, coming to stand beside her. He followed her gaze to the garden, now beginning to bloom with the perennials she had lovingly planted over the years. Having second thoughts? Rachel considered the question. No, not second thoughts. Just acknowledging the ending. This garden was my favorite project, but I've taken cuttings from the best plants. They'll grow in new soil. Nathan's hand found hers, fingers intertwining naturally. Like you. She smiled up at him, struck anew by how seamlessly their relationship had evolved over the past months. What had begun as friendship during her darkest time had gradually deepened into something neither had anticipated, but both now treasured. Their first kiss had come on New Year's Eve, tentative and questioning at first, then growing in certainty as they acknowledged feelings that had been developing for months. They had taken things slowly afterward, mindful of Rachel's still fresh wounds and the complications their relationship might create within the Sullivan family. "Ready to go?" Nathan asked, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. Rachel took one last look at the house that had contained a chapter of her life now complete. "Ready," she confirmed. The drive to her new condominium took 20 minutes. A modern, two-bedroom unit in a development convenient to both her expanding design business and Nathan's hospital. Though they spent most nights together at one place or the other, they had agreed to maintain separate residences for now, establishing their relationship on its own terms rather than rushing to recreate the domestic arrangement Rachel had known with Michael. As they unloaded boxes and arranged furniture in her new space, Rachel felt a deep contentment she hadn't experienced in years, perhaps ever. Her business was thriving, with 3 new corporate clients secured in the past month alone. Her relationship with Nathan brought daily joy and mutual respect. Even the lingering pain of betrayal had diminished, relegated to an occasional ache, rather than the consuming agony of those first few months. "What do you think?" Nathan asked, as they stood in the newly arranged living room, surveying their work. "Does it feel like home yet?" Rachel looked around at the carefully selected furniture, some from her previous life, some newly purchased to reflect her current tastes. Artwork she had chosen herself hung on walls painted in colors she had selected without compromise or consultation. "It's getting there," she replied. "It's uniquely mine, in a way no space has ever been before." Nathan nodded, understanding. "That's important. Creating something that's truly yours, not defined by anyone else's expectations." His insight, as always, went straight to the heart of the matter. In redesigning her living space, Rachel was also redesigning her life, keeping elements that still served her well while discarding those that no longer fit. Later, after the moving crew had departed and the essential unpacking was complete, they sat on Rachel's new balcony with takeout and wine, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "I have something for you," Nathan said, reaching into his pocket. "A housewarming gift, or maybe a new beginning gift." He handed her a small, flat box tied with a simple ribbon. Inside, Rachel found a key attached to a silver keychain engraved with a compass rose. "It's to my place," Nathan explained. I know we agreed to maintain separate homes for now, which I still think is right for us. But I wanted you to know my door is always open to you, literally and figuratively. No pressure, no expectations. Just whenever you want to be there, I want you to be able to come and go freely. The gesture touched Rachel deeply. Unlike Michael's grand but ultimately hollow romantic gestures, Nathan's gift represented something genuine: trust, respect for her independence, and a commitment to building something lasting. Thank you, she said, leaning over to kiss him softly. I have something for you too, actually. Rachel went inside and returned with an envelope, which she handed to Nathan somewhat nervously. He opened it to find professional-looking business cards inside. Printed on heavy cream stock was Sullivan & Sullivan Interior Design, with both their names listed as partners. Nathan looked up, surprise evident in his expression. Rachel, this is… Are you sure? Only if you want to, she said quickly. I know you love medicine, and I'm not suggesting you leave that. But we've talked about how much you enjoy the design aspects of our projects together, and I thought maybe, as a side venture? Your eye for spatial layout is incredible, and your suggestions for the Matthews project were what clinched the contract. Nathan examined the card again, running his fingers over the embossed lettering. I'm honored, he said finally. Truly. And yes, I'd love to be involved, even if just advisory at first, while I figure out how to balance both careers. We'll figure it out together, Rachel assured him. That's what partners do. As night fell, they remained on the balcony, discussing possibilities for their professional collaboration and personal future. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by comfortable silences and moments of shared laughter, a stark contrast to the tension and unspoken grievances that had characterized Rachel's interactions with Michael in the final years of their marriage. Have you heard from Michael lately? Nathan asked, the question arising naturally as they discussed potential clients. Not directly, Rachel replied, but I ran into Patricia last week, my divorce attorney. She mentioned he's been asking mutual acquaintances about me. Apparently, he's expressed regret about how things ended. How do you feel about that? Nathan's tone was curious rather than jealous or concerned. Rachel considered the question thoughtfully. It doesn't really affect me anymore. Whatever regrets Michael has are his to manage. I've moved beyond needing his remorse or acknowledgement. Nathan nodded, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. That's what healing looks like. Not the absence of scars, but the ability to carry them without being defined by them. When did you get so wise? Rachel teased, leaning her head against his shoulder. I've had an excellent teacher these past months, he replied, kissing the top of her head. Watching someone rebuild their life with such grace after devastating betrayal taught me more about resilience than all my years of medical training. The compliment warmed Rachel, not because she needed external validation, but because she recognized the truth in his words. She had survived what once seemed unsurvivable. More than that, she had emerged stronger, clearer about her worth and what she wanted from life. As the evening air grew chilly, they moved inside, settling on Rachel's new sofa surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and possibility. Tomorrow would bring the practical tasks of further settling in, hanging shower curtains, organizing kitchen cabinets, arranging books on shelves. But for tonight, it was enough to be here, together, at the beginning of something built on a foundation far stronger than the one that had crumbled beneath her feet 6 months ago. What are you thinking about? Nathan asked, noticing her contemplative expression. Everything that had to break for us to find our way to each other, Rachel answered honestly. If you had asked me a year ago about the worst thing that could happen, I would have said losing my marriage, discovering such profound betrayal from the two people I trusted most, and it was devastating. But from that devastation came this, she gestured between them, which is more authentic and equal than anything I've experienced before. Nathan's eyes, so similar to Michael's in color, yet so different in the warmth and attentiveness they conveyed, held hers steadily. Sometimes we have to lose what we thought we wanted to find what we truly need. Exactly, Rachel agreed. I would never have chosen that path of pain, but I can't regret where it led me. As midnight approached, they prepared for bed in the comfortable choreography they had developed over months of growing intimacy. Rachel found herself reflecting on the differences between this relationship and her marriage to Michael. With Nathan, there was a partnership of equals, both giving and receiving support, both contributing their strengths while acknowledging their vulnerabilities. The future stretched before them, unwritten but full of shared promise. There would be challenges, of course. Michael's presence in their lives as Nathan's brother ensured that their past would occasionally intersect with their present. Family gatherings would require careful navigation, at least initially. But Rachel no longer feared these complications. She had learned that she was strong enough to face whatever came, especially with Nathan beside her, not as a savior, but as a true partner. In bed, with Nathan's arm wrapped securely around her waist, Rachel recalled Emma's cruel taunt that had become the title of her personal tragedy. "Sorry, honey, but your cousin is so much better." At the time, those words had shattered her world. Now, they seemed almost laughably insignificant, the petty cruelty of two people whose moral compasses had failed them both. "Nathan?" she whispered, unsure if he was still awake. He murmured sleepily. "Thank you for showing me what real love looks like. Not grand gestures or passionate declarations, but daily kindness, unwavering support, and genuine respect." He pulled her closer, pressing a gentle kiss to her shoulder. "That goes both ways, Rachel. You taught me that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone worth weathering imperfections with." As sleep claimed them both in the first night of their new chapter together, Rachel's final thought was not of what she had lost, but of all she had gained. The betrayal that had once defined her had become merely the catalyst for a journey toward a more authentic life and deeper love than she had ever imagined possible. Outside, spring continued its quiet work of renewal, coaxing new growth from dormant soil. Inside, wrapped in the security of genuine love, Rachel Sullivan slept peacefully, no longer defined by betrayal, but by the resilience, wisdom, and capacity for joy that had emerged from its ashes. If you enjoyed this story of heartbreak and renewal, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more emotional journeys. Leave a comment with the word resilience to let us know you listened until the end. Don't forget to share this video with someone who might need a reminder that even after devastating betrayal, new beginnings are possible. Thanks for the coffee, and see you next time.